Since the summer, Ukraine has stepped up long-range drone attacks on Russia, targeting energy infrastructure and weakening its air defenses. These strikes have already led to gasoline shortages in Russia, even forcing rationing in some regions and highlighting the growing vulnerability of the country's infrastructure, according to The Independent. Western analysts argue that attacks on energy infrastructure have serious, though not catastrophic, consequences. According to a recent review by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, an American think tank, Ukrainian drones have repeatedly struck 16 major Russian oil refineries, representing approximately 38% of the country's nominal refining capacity. However, the actual damage was said to be limited. Most refineries resumed operations within a few weeks, and Russia's oil refining volumes were mitigated by idle capacity and existing surplus fuel. However, these deep strikes gave Kyiv the initiative at a crucial moment. The Independent notes, President Volodymyr Zelenski stated that Ukraine's increased long-range strike capabilities were causing real damage, forcing the Kremlin to import fuel and restrict exports. We believe they have lost up to 20% of their gasoline supplies directly as a result of our strikes, he told reporters. Drones are evolving, a soldier with the call sign Fidel told the Associated Press. Instead of flying 500 kilometers, they now fly 1,000. 3 factors are essential for a successful operation: drones, people, and planning. We want to achieve the best possible result. For us, this is a sacred mission. Most of Ukraine's drone force is domestically produced. For example, the Lyuty drone, the workhorse of night attacks, is neither elegant nor intimidating, but its simple assembly allows it to be concealed and constantly improved, allowing it to slip through the carefully controlled airspace of the front. The operational range of these drones marks a shift in the geography of the conflict. Their cost has also dropped, posing a further challenge for expensive air defense systems. Long-range drones are now produced in Ukraine for just $55,000, the publication writes. We see Ukraine becoming more successful in waging war on Russian territory. For most of the war, Russia operated under the assumption that its own territory was safe. That's no longer the case, said Adriano Bossoni, RAIN's director of analysis. According to him, the strategic logic is to attrition through logistics. By forcing Russia to reroute supplies and deploy air defense assets over a wider area, Kiev aims to undermine Moscow's ability to sustain large-scale operations. At the same time, Kiev's own strike potential allows it to independently launch drones, bypassing Western approval required for the import of long-range weapons. After Putin reported on the successful testing of the new underwater drone Poseidon, the Kremlin's chief blogger, Medvedev, also woke up. On his social media page, the former Russian president decided to praise Poseidon. He first insulted the head of the Belgian Ministry of Defense, then wrote that, unlike the Burevestnik, the Poseidon could be called a doomsday weapon. Medvedev echoed Putin's praise for the successful test of the Poseidon nuclear-powered underwater drone. One social media user decided to leave a comment under Medvedev's post, suggesting testing the Poseidon in Belgium. Then Belgium will disappear. The deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council responded curtly, "That's the whole idea, sir." Medvedev's interlocutor replied, "The Poseidon project is nothing new. It's a modern take on the Soviet T-15 project. At the time, the Kremlin planned to create a powerful torpedo to attack the US coast in the event of war. They were attempting to create a modern submarine to support this torpedo. Putin first mentioned the Poseidon in 2018 during his address to the Federal Assembly. By January 2023, Russian media reported the production of the first set of Poseidon torpedoes for the Belgorod submarine, and recently a war criminal reported a successful test of the Poseidon. Recently, Belgium threatened to wipe Moscow off the face of the earth if the Kremlin decided to attack Brussels. Belgian Defense Minister Theo Franken told De Morgan that if Russia ever decides to attack Brussels, the alliance's response will be immediate and devastating. If Putin strikes the capital of Belgium, he strikes the heart of NATO, and we will raze Moscow to the ground. This is perhaps one of the harshest statements ever made by a Western European leader. Franken emphasized that Western countries should not fear the Kremlin because threats only work on those who yield to them. The Russian embassy in Belgium has already called the minister's statement provocative and irresponsible. However, Franken himself doubts Putin would risk attacking Brussels, as it would be a direct attack on the entire North Atlantic Alliance. Military analysts remind us that NATO's military potential far exceeds Russia's. After 2 years of war against Ukraine, the professional portion of the Russian army has been virtually destroyed, with thousands of tanks and armored vehicles lost. Russia no longer has sufficient equipment even to transport ammunition. Horses and donkeys are increasingly being used at the front. Against this backdrop, the threat to raze Moscow to the ground sounds less like a figure of speech and more like a military technical fact. NATO countries truly have all the capabilities to do this, from high-precision missiles to strategic aviation and nuclear forces. Franken also noted that he is most concerned about Russia's hybrid actions, destabilization, provocations, and incitement on the alliance's eastern borders. The little green men in Estonia who are inciting the Russian-speaking minority against the Nazi regime. Before you know it, they'll annex part of Estonia, he said.